Welcome back to AP World History. Now we're going to take a look at post-classical China. Now, if you remember where we left off China in the classical age, the Han Dynasty fell around the 250s or so CE, and China falls into a state of war, not as bad as the Warring States period, but there's no united leader or dynasty of China, and so you have many different states. And in 589, this will finally change when the Sui dynasty reunites China. And they do a good job of reuniting it. They use a strong military. Unfortunately, the military is maybe a little too strong, a little too harsh, kind of like the Qin dynasty. And they like to do a lot of building projects like revamp the Great Wall of China and build many, many more canals. The biggest and most important one being the Grand Canal, hoping they can connect the whole country through trade, or kingdom through trade. It's not a country yet. But as we saw with the Qin dynasty, they are short-lived because the people don't want to pay for all the taxes. They don't like how they're being treated, and they fall. And this leads to two new dynasties taking over after the Sui, and that will be the Tang and the Song. And before we look at them, we'll look at a map here. The Sui is the one in green here, so you can see the Sui do a good job reuniting most of China. It incorporates most of what the Han Dynasty had. And then the Tang, or the red border, they will push China to its furthest borders at the time, and will be the largest dynasty, or largest territory. You can see they continue with the Great Wall, maybe add on to it a little bit, but really the Tang and the Sui finish the Grand Canal, and the Grand Canal you can see is those blue kind of railroad marks. If you can see the cursor here going through China here, linking the Changyang River with the Huanghe River, and then linking that to Beijing. This is a huge deal because it allows for a heck of a lot more trade going north and south through China instead of only east and west. And then the last dynasty, the Song dynasty, you can see the borders retract. They come back in, and it's not as big as the Tang, but still incorporating most of modern China. Or at least most, I shouldn't say modern China, but most of central China. Now, the Tang and the Song dynasties both last about 300 years or so. The big things they did for why they could last so long is they fixed the government. The Sui reunite the government, reunite the territories, and then the Tang really reformed the government. And the Song will continue with this, in that they create 6 ministries to help run the government. So they divide the bureaucracy up into 6 branches. And they have one for personnel, dealing with the people, one for finance, dealing with monies, one for rights, dealing with religion, one for army, dealing with the military, one for justice, dealing with laws, and one for public works, so building public roads, canals, walls, all those things. And then above all of these, there's a group called the censorate. And the censorate tries to stop any corruption that's going on. And so by dividing up the work this way, by having a kind of big brother looking over these agencies, it helps rein in a lot of the corruption that they were experienced before at the end of the Han Dynasty and throughout the era of no major city or of any major empire. Now, this is, of course, not perfect. It's mainly run by the elites, even though there is a civil service exam which allows many to rise up, but there's a lot of cheating and bribery that goes along with it that helps the elites try to stay in power, even though the government tries to minimize that. Also, with this time period, you have a major rise in the population of China because of new policies on or new techniques in growing rice, where they bring rice from Vietnam, and this leads to more urbanization. So the government has to build more in larger cities. And so with this increased population, there's going to be people with more free time. And this will lead to a golden age, because not only will people have more free time to look at the arts, but also people are going to be making more money, because during this time we have the major trade routes like the Silk Road and the Indian Ocean trade, which are booming. And so that gives people time to spend money or extra money. They can spend their extra money on artwork or poems or literature, and some people have the time to then do that. They also develop new technologies during this golden age, like improved process of mining and smithing iron. They create the movable type printing press because they already created the paper and the printing press before then, and they create something very, very, very important for warfare and the modern world we live in, which is gunpowder. They don't use it as guns as we'd use it today, or as you might think of the Europeans will eventually use it. Instead, it's more for fireworks, and they create some fire lances where they shoot the black powder for gunpowder, but it doesn't do much. And then the thing that brings in all this cash again is that trade focus, and they focus mainly on luxury goods, with that one being silk. And this leads to a great thing for women. Not the foot binding part. We'll talk about that here in a second. That's not the good thing. But the good thing is because women are the ones that deal with silk and do the main processing of the silk, they earn more money, and that gives them the right to push for more property rights and for a better education, which they do get. Mainly the education, though, so they can teach their sons how to be smarter and better and more wise in the ways of Confucius. But they improve their lives a little bit. However, it's not like it's a great leap forward in improvement or anything like that, because there are some steps back, like foot binding, which really subjugates women and really harms them. And we're not going to go into too much of foot binding here. We're actually going to take a look at that during the week with a couple lessons there.